You need to arrest him this instant. He left me off his birthday party guest list, and that is simply not okay. I used to secretly enjoy watching Karen go on her little power binges because seeing pure entitlement unravel in real time was better than any TV show. She genuinely believed that authority was something she was born owning, and that the whole street revolved around her moods, her calendar, and her precious clipboard. When I first settled into the neighborhood, I kept my head down, mowed my lawn on schedule, and spent a full 6 months just watching quietly, studying her habits instead of starting fights. Make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy a good HOA horror story. It didn't take long to notice that Karen never actually listened to anyone, never met anyone halfway, and never once doubted herself. She slapped fines on people for grass blades, tilting the wrong direction, trash bins that seemed too loud, and curtains that apparently offended her sense of energy. Her meetings weren't discussions. They were one-woman speeches where she talked over the room and handed out tickets like party favors. I stayed quiet, avoided eye contact, kept to myself, and somehow that made me irresistible to her as a target. She fined me for parking a few inches from my own curb, for washing my car on the wrong weekday, and basically for breathing without permission. I refused to pay a cent, contested every single citation, and quietly kept records of it all. My silence seemed to bother her far more than a shouting match would have. She craved a reaction, wanted fear, wanted surrender. What she got from me was nothing but calm. Neighbors muttered warnings under their breath, told cautionary tales of people who packed up and left after tangling with her. I took it all in, smiled politely, and stood my ground. I wasn't planning payback. I was building an advantage. Power trips don't crumble from noise. They crumble from pressure, and Karen was already carrying more than enough of that pressure on her own. Every day she marched the block like her clipboard was a badge of office, peering over fences, snapping photos, manufacturing crises out of nothing. Each knock on my door came wrapped in a smug little smile. Every notice buried under too many exclamation points. I kept my door shut and my patience locked tight. I figured that if I stayed unnoticeable long enough, she'd eventually lose interest. Instead, my composure turned into a personal challenge for her. People like her can't stand being tuned out. Karen wasn't after obedience anymore. She wanted total control, and it was obvious she was gearing up for something much bigger than parking tickets. That quiet of mine was hiding tension, patience, and perfect timing. Pieces I kept collecting while Karen kept mistaking my restraint for weakness. Before we get further into this, drop a comment letting us know what city or country you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see how far these stories travel. For the first time since I'd moved onto that street, I decided to throw myself a birthday get-together. Nothing over the top, nothing risky, just a low-key gathering to celebrate having survived another year under Karen's personal storm cloud. I didn't have a huge circle of close friends in the area, but a handful of neighbors always gave a friendly nod or wave when we passed. That felt like enough of a starting point to build something ordinary. I hoped that, including them, might chip away at the invisible walls Karen loved putting up between people. I planned everything with care. No blasting music, no cars blocking anyone's driveway, nothing chaotic. Even so, against my better instincts, I went ahead and notified the HOA. Legally, I didn't owe anyone that courtesy, but I wanted a record on file, proof that I'd acted in good faith. The instant Karen saw my message, she jumped on it like a predator sensing weakness. She called me herself, her voice coated in a fake kind of professionalism. She informed me that hosting a party required a $2,000 unfamiliar guest exposure fee, since strangers might apparently threaten the community's harmony. Then she tacked on a $1,500 attendance fee, explaining that since she'd be showing up as HOA president, she deserved to be paid for it. As if that weren't enough, she insisted on carving out time during my own celebration to deliver some kind of community wellness address. I stared at my phone completely stunned. It felt less like a housing regulation and more like a shakedown dressed up in official language. She spoke with total confidence, like all of this was standard procedure already rubber-stamped somewhere in her head. I didn't push back. I simply thanked her and hung up the phone. That was the exact moment I decided Karen would have absolutely no role in my birthday, none whatsoever. I didn't call off the party. I didn't send her a dime. I didn't ask for her blessing again. I invited my coworkers, my family, and the neighbors who greeted me with smiles instead of citations. I kept the music down low, the doors shut, and the whole atmosphere easy and relaxed. Somewhere inside, I already knew Karen wasn't going to let this go quietly. She never passed up a chance to force her way into places she wasn't wanted. Still, some part of me hoped reason would win out, that she'd stick to paperwork instead of showing up in person. The decorations went up, the food got prepped, and laughter began to fill the house little by little. For once, things felt genuinely normal, almost too normal. And where Karen was concerned, normal never stuck around for long. When my actual birthday arrived, the day carried a strange sense of calm. The house slowly filled with familiar faces, laughter drifting softly through the rooms instead of blaring through the walls. Neighbors I barely knew showed up bearing snacks, uneasy smiles, and a bit of cautious hope. Coworkers cracked jokes, glasses clinked together, and for a couple of hours the neighborhood actually felt normal, almost warm. I kept the music low, the windows closed, and everything under control. The complete opposite of whatever Karen had been expecting. We were right in the middle of a conversation when the first hard bang landed on the door. The laughter froze. Another knock followed, harder, sharper, unmistakably deliberate. I didn't need to check the peephole to know exactly who it was. Karen announced herself loud and clear anyway, ranting about violations, authority, and consequences like she was delivering a sermon. I opened the door just enough to see her flushed face and her clipboard trembling in her grip. She accused me of running an illegal gathering, demanded I pay up immediately, and ordered the whole thing shut down on the spot. I tried calmly explaining that it was nothing more than a small birthday party, well within any reasonable limit. She wasn't hearing a word of it. She never did. She shrieked that she'd have the police there in minutes if I didn't cave right away. I shut the door. That one move sent her completely over the edge. The banging grew heavier, insults poured out, and threats followed close behind. My guests started shifting uncomfortably. I calmed them down, nudged the music up a notch, and we kept the celebration going. The noise swallowed her shouting, and after a while the pounding finally stopped. We assumed she'd given up and gone home. A few minutes later the knocking started again. Heavier this time, more official, noticeably different in tone. The room went quiet. When I pulled the door open, 2 police officers were standing there, with Karen hanging back behind them, wearing the smudgiest grin I'd ever seen on a human face. She claimed I was guilty of disorderly conduct, noise complaints, and making threats. The officers stepped past me into the house, took in the calm, ordinary scene, and traded a look between themselves. While they were still asking their questions, a loud crash rang out from the yard. One officer stepped out onto the porch and stopped dead in his tracks. Karen was in full meltdown mode, toppling over planters and smashing decorations, screaming something about gathering evidence and seizing property. The second officer followed him out, disbelief plastered across his face. Inside, my guests sat frozen. Outside, Karen kept spiraling further, completely unaware that she'd already lost the reins of the situation. She still believed she was running the show, but that control had already slipped out of her grasp without her noticing. The officers barely needed anything explained once they watched Karen in action for themselves. One of them calmly told her to back away from my porch mid-kick, with splintered wood scattering down the steps behind her. She tried instantly to twist the story, pointing fingers at me, shouting about her authority, HOA jurisdiction, and some imaginary emergency. The body camera captured all of it, including her own admission that she'd called the police, just to teach me a lesson. They pulled us apart. I pulled up messages, timestamps, and my documentation while Karen unraveled, cutting people off, contradicting her own story, and insisting they arrest me instead of her. When one officer told her she'd just filed a false police report, her confidence shattered into pure rage. She grabbed for a clipboard, insisting it proved she was untouchable. It didn't. She was placed under arrest right there for filing a false report, along with trespassing and destruction of private property. Neighbors began gathering, phones raised, murmurs turning into open shock. Karen shrieked that the whole neighborhood would fall to pieces without her running it. In the courtroom, the video evidence spoke self. The judge didn't lecture, didn't mock her, just handed down the sentence. Karen was given 12 months in county jail, 8 of them to actually serve, 4 suspended under probation. She was ordered to pay $18,000 in restitution to cover damages, court costs, and penalties, along with a permanent no-contact order keeping her away from me. Her HOA authority was stripped from her immediately, pending a full civil review. The neighborhood transformed almost overnight. The fines vanished. Meetings turned into actual conversations instead of lectures. People started waving again like normal humans. My porch got rebuilt even better than before, all covered by Karen's court-ordered restitution. I marked the occasion quietly, not with noise, but with genuine peace. Karen's power trip ended exactly the way every fake authority eventually does. Exposed under bright lights, undeniable evidence, and consequences she never imagined could reach her. That birthday turned into a story people still bring up, not because of the cake or the playlist, but because it was the moment one woman's little empire finally caved in under its own weight. The end. If you enjoyed this one, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think she got exactly what she deserved?